this is what we're gonna do with the practical, and you have some component. You're gonna have two pickup type of impression coping, which is gonna be connecting to the fixture level, and you wanna have one transfer impression coping. Then we're gonna have a transfer post. This is a 6mm diameter with a height of 5mm, and the tissue depth is 3mm. And also we're gonna have a one rigid abutment. The same thing as tissue depth is 3mm, and the diameter is 6mm, and the total height, post height is 7mm. And also we're gonna have some impression lab analog, which this one gonna be connecting to the impression coping while during the making master cast. And also we have a plastic pickup type of impression coping is available too. So let me go ahead starting with, so now we're gonna have a 5 fixture. You're gonna place the 5 different type of impression coping material. Okay, the first of all, the pickup type impression coping are two views. One has a narrow area and you have one wide area. This is for the space consolidation purpose. But let me go ahead connecting with the one pickup type of impression coping. Normally pickup type of impression coping, when you connected it, it'll be better the wing gonna be going to buccal aspect of it. But sometimes you have a limited space. These two impression coping can be hitting each other. So basically it's internally it's gonna be hexa engagement. Make sure you put it in and try to rotate it in. You shouldn't rotate. That's why that's you confirm that your tactile sensitivity, this impression coping is connected. Okay, for the learning purpose, I'm gonna go ahead check the dimension of this impression coping. If you check this dimension of impression coping, just removing that fixture connection part of it, it's gonna be 11mm of length. And if you're connecting this impression pin, it's gonna be 16mm length. Which meaning is in the posterior segment, if the patient, the maximum opening is less than 16mm, you cannot connecting this impression coping. Okay, and let me go ahead, put it into different angles, because when you place the impression coping in intraorally, sometimes this impression coping can be hitting each other. Normally you tightening with a hand tightening, or you can use less than 10 Newton torque drive, you can utilize it. But if in the circumstance it's in the intraoral condition, you need to make sure that bring your dental floss, you pass that area. This is not passing, which meaning is this impression coping is hitting each other. Maybe it creates some inaccuracy. So make sure that then you unscrew that on, then pull it out, rotate it, and make sure, okay, this is a snug. Then you can bring this one out, same format. Make sure that that's not rotating. Then you screw in. Before you're tightening, you just gently squeeze in. But in the clinical circumstance, then at this stage you need to make between X-ray, make sure that the hexa connection is completely engaged in. So in this way, you can avoid hitting impression coping. So this is where in the lab practical, this is where you have to do it. And the second piece, you're gonna put it in is a transfer impression coping. Normally transfer impression coping is engaged in. So actually, complete unscrew, you can removing this is come out as two piece. But normally we don't do it, just we leave it, this is one piece impression coping, just using this way. So basically it's the same. You're connecting it, make sure this is not rotating. If it's not rotate, then you can gently thumb screw tightening it. And then the same thing, if you have a hand tightening with your free hand, without any instrument, then make sure X-ray that if it's seating completely, then you can engage it in. Gentle force. Normally it's 10 Newton centimeter is enough connection for the impression copying. And for the learning purpose and this area, you're gonna go ahead and place the transfer impression, transfer post. When you deliver transfer post always has a flat surface on it. Make sure that flat surface in the always buccal aspect of it. In that way, later on, you're gonna connecting with the plastic impression tape. You can make sure what the location is. Okay, it is the same thing goes on. You put it in approximate the location. You put that area. No, this rotated. Make sure this flat area in the buccal aspect, and then make sure your hand tightening. If it's not moving, then that's the time. 요거 드듬드듬 그거 하라 그러나. Okay, this is about what? It's not rotating. Then you have a gentle tightening. Gentle tightening. Then you need to make sure take an X-ray on that. If it's complete seating, then you can tighten with the torque wrench, torque drive. I'm gonna do that with the delivering with these two abutment. This is a rigid abutment. Rigid abutment has the same flat surface on it, but this rigid abutment don't have any hexagon location. It's more stable connection. You screw it in until it stops. So you don't have to look up the hexagon connections. Stop it. Then, for general impression copying, you're gonna remove this impression copying. That's why you're gonna use 10 Newton centimeters. But this transfer and the rigid abutment, once you connect it intraorally, you don't remove it. So you need to have a final torque, the seating on this one. Normally, final torque seating for the rigid or transfer abutment is about 30 Newton centimeters. But this is a dentiform. I'm not gonna do 30 Newton centimeters, but I'm gonna do 15 Newton centimeter. But make sure this is 30 Newton centimeter engaged in. Then you rotate it. Then you're gonna hear this sound. This meaning is it's engaged in the 30 Newton centimeter. I always do it 3 turn, 3 and 3, which come out as 9. If you're using hand wrench, that's exactly the same thing. Exactly the same thing. What you have to do is 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. That's the way you handle it. If you don't have this automated torque wrench, and your kit consists of your hand wrenches available. Hand wrench, there's an in and out portion of it. And you're gonna screw in, you're gonna using in as coming up top portion, out you have to reverse it. Okay. So this is 2-piece, you gently engaged in, make sure this is completely seating. And this torque wrench, if you look bottom portion of it, there's a certain numberings on it. This is about 10 Newton. When you put it into the line, match it with the 10, which is 10 Newton of torque, you can create it. If you put it into 20 Newton, this is basically gentle 20 Newton. Then you're gonna feel that little more resistance on it. Then you completely squeeze, and it's gonna be 30 Newton centimeters. Now you can tell that this is a lot more harder. In intraoral delivery, you must use 30 Newton centimeters. But in the lab purpose, this is dentiform, so I'm gonna go ahead using about 20 Newton torque. Okay. So make sure this is you have a control torque, which is you can have a 20 Newton centimeter. But if you pull this one out, rotate, then it's going to be the unlimited torque. You can create more than 200 Newton centimeters. So when you want to have control torque, you make sure this arm is mobile this way. Okay. Then this is you have rigid abutment. You have a hexa engagement, and basically you can pull this one out. You can engage the hex. Actually, you can use this one as a hand drive. Then make sure you engage the in. Then I'm going to have a 333, 333, 333, which is 9 times. 1, 2. Don't talking all the way. You see your neck is bending, which meaning this is 30 Newton centimeters. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Which come out as 9 times the screwed in. That's basically what you have to do. Okay, now we are ready to make the impression. So this is a pickup type of impression coping, was connecting on the 10 area. Then we have a transfer impression coping was connected it. And we have a transfer post. In the transfer post, you're gonna using plastic impression pickup coping. And this plastic pickup coping has protruded area. This area, if you look at the internally, there's a little flat surface in it. So you want to make sure that the flat surface is going into exactly the same as the flat surface on your abutment. So when you make it reasonable area located in, then you put it in, you can hear snap sound. Can you hear snap sound? So you make sure that you need to have that snap sound, which means it's completely inserted in. So this is going to be pickup impression. This is transfer. This is plastic pickup. So this is a direct impression technique simulation. So we're going to go ahead and make impression. You can connect it in that area also with a plastic coping on it. This is, if you do so, this is going to be more accurate engaged in your lab analog. Lab analog is the exact forms. But in a clinical circumstance, sometimes you are not going to using this plastic piece. You're going to make an impression directly over that post. That's just simulation. So this is what we're going to do for just before making impression. For the consideration of making a custom tray, you have to understand the dimension of impression copings. The impression coping total length was about 16 millimeters. Normally in the maxillary arch, you're going to place the implant over 3 millimeters below the gum line. So which means that the tip portion going to be 13 millimeters from the gingival level. And if you're using the transfer coping, this is total length is 13 millimeters, which meaning is it's going to be 10 millimeters above the gingival level. In the lower arch, normally gingival level is going to be 2 millimeters. So that's the consideration. And the other aspect you have to consider is when we place the dental implant, it has a tendency that the maxillary arch, you always approach the buccal to the palatal aspect of it. So when you make a custom tray, make sure that your palatal aspect has a little more room required. And the mandibular arch is the other aspect of it. When we place the dental implant, it's a tendency you're going to place the lingual to the buccal. So which meaning is you need to have a little more space for the lingual aspect of it. That's a consideration. Okay, first of all, we're going to utilizing this wax. I'm going to wrap around that area. Normally in the tooth area, we're going to have a single thickness of wax. But in the area of the impression coping is connected, we have a dual piece. Okay, let me go ahead later. Okay, this part is easy because we have impression coping already exist. But without impression coping, you need to make, let me go ahead removing this impression coping first. Okay, in the normal clinical circumstance, you're not going to have this impression coping. Okay? This was removed. So you have to make sure that that area, I said this, it's going to be 13 millimeters, so you approximately about 10 millimeter height, 1 centimeter height is good enough to the vertical height. So when you make custom tray, this area, you need to have a millimeter height and make sure that area has a filler first. And I said that this buccal, it's a maxillary arch, it's going to be slightly tilting to the buccal. So make sure that that area was filled with the wax. Maybe pretty much you have the level with the occlusal level. That's going to be about right. This is ready for starting the making the custom tray. So that area has to fill up first. But this two area, we're gonna using pickup type of impression copying, the transfer type, and this as a post as we're gonna utilize it. We don't have to consider this aspect of it. So now, in generally, I'm gonna represent that area as a 1 thickness of pink base plate wax. It's not necessary you need to have a really smooth surface area on this one, or even if you leave a little gap, it's gonna be okay. Then basically when you have one layer of pink base plate wax as a cover, then we wanna have a vertical stop. While you're making impression, tray shouldn't move around. So I'm gonna making tripodization on this area. This is one vertical stop, and that area, and the second vertical stop, and this area, let me see. Let me go ahead and have a third vertical stop on here. So in the vertical stop, you have to remove wax. Okay. Then because this is wax, when we mixing with auto polymerizing resin, it has a tendency to generate heat. Sometimes this heat gonna be the melting this wax. Wax gonna be working as the lubricant. So with prevention of those, you're utilizing that cooking foil. And this cooking foil, don't using it a really smooth surface. We want to have rough surface, because this rough surface area, when your tray is created it, this gonna be in included in the internal structure of tray, so it's gonna be mechanical locking for the impression material. So you don't have to make it really nice and smooth, just in general. You cover that area with the tray. Then make sure that we have the vertical stop. Make sure that you have to look for the vertical stop. In this area, we want to have impression material, and the tray material has to need to have stop on it. So make sure that to find out where the vertical stop is. When you make a custom tray, either we can utilize in custom tray or the temporary tray, which is a stock tray, we can utilizing it. When you make a custom tray, normally we have two different materials. One is auto polymerizing resin, which is direct, the same thing as polymethyl methacrylate, which is direct resin. And the other material is light curing material, we can utilizing it. When using liquid and powder, it is always wise to using liquid dropping first, then you're gonna using powder on that aspect. Normally its aspect ratio is a 3:1. So let me go at 1, 2, 3. Then using one scoop of powder. Then you drop the powder to the liquid. If you drop the powder first, then you add on liquid, sometimes you're leaving residue. When you mix it, you have to wait until doughy stage, then we can utilizing it. When you reach doughy stage, normally you can pick it up, and you should have this ball portion of it. Then you can ball up, then you lift. Then basically we're using this plate because you want to have some control thickness of the custom tray. If you don't have it, you don't have to use it. This plate, and I designed it, the thick portion is going to be for the custom tray, and the thin portion is going to be making the record base. And you remove the initial excess material. When we making custom tray, certain guideline, if you have the area of impression coping, we want to have a little longer the flanges, because you want to pick up all those with the lateral retention portion of it. But in general, area of the tooth, we have a little shorter length. Then make sure the area of a stopper, you can compress down there, and you can have a little stopping on those. 리퀴드 들어간다. I'm going to go ahead and make connecting that area on the tray handle. In this area, later on, you're gonna create a little hole for that pickup impression pin, so you can thinning down this a little bit. But make sure that in the buccal dimension, you wanna have a thick flanges. If these flanges are really thin, sometimes during the impression removing, it has some tendency for the fracturing. Okay, now we're going to have a let it set for the polymerization. Okay, it's about 5 minutes or so. This material gonna be partially set. Then you can go ahead and remove it. Internally, this is what it looks like. Then you just pull this aluminum foil. Remove the aluminum foil. Then you can see that naturally there's some micro irregularity inside on it. It's going to be mechanical bonding for the impression material later on. Okay, then let's sit and make sure that all this area is covered. Okay. That's pretty much about right. Then now we're going to go ahead and trim this area, making a completion of the custom tray. This is the impression tray we made it. If you look at the impression tray, the internal structure, there's a lot of irregularities in it. This irregularity is going to be working as a mechanical bonding to the impression material. And if you look at the sideway, this is the mechanical locking for holding impression material. And also, when you're looking at that, this too is a pickup type of impression coping, and you're sitting down here, you can be able to see the screw holes in it. And also, if you look at the sideways, always make sure this pin portion gonna be above the impression tray, but this body portion should be below the impression tray. This is the way impression tray you. This open top tray, the top portion, we need to seal up with some wax. And when you add on the wax, make sure you approximate the impression pin places. Okay, now you're ready to pour adhesive material. There's adhesive material. It always come out with the little brushes on it. Don't ever use these brushes. If you're using that brush, if tray was never tried in intraorally, that's okay. But if once it's tray, this tray is contaminated, basically you want to pour the adhesive material. Then using the composite brush, you spread out. So polyvinyl material, we have little holes in this tray, gonna be mechanically locked in, but basically the impression material is a chemical bonding. So we need to have a good spread out all over the area, and to make sure that it's evenly coated with the adhesive material. For the impression, we're going to have two different consistency of it. This is a light body impression material. This is a heavy body polyvinyl siloxane. And also you have some syringe required. Okay. In a tray, we're going to load it with heavy body impression material. But in the surface area, we're going to use light body. And also around the implant area, we're going to use heavy body impression material. Okay, now let's go ahead and start the impression. Now my assist is going to be loaded on first of all in the syringe area. Meanwhile, I'm going to go ahead and inject into proximal area with the soft, proximally the light body impression material. We're doing this because sometimes if the embrasure space, heavy body impression material gets in, then there's no way you can remove that impression. But this portion, you're gonna make impression as it is, so just to go ahead using light body. Then this heavy body impression material gonna be around it impression coping area. And the OSTEM impression coping, you have a little ear on it, so go ahead and make sure that that area impression material go through it. In that way, there's not returning while you're connecting with the lab analog. 포토는 어딘지. 일단 놓고 포토 좀 찍어. 빨리 찍어야겠다. So basically, then you're holding down, and when you're seating, make sure that this screw you have to compress it down. Make sure this screw, the impression pin has to come out from the wax area. If you don't do that, later on when you try to remove it, you cannot find that holes, then it's going to be very difficult to make removing impression material. Okay. Then we're going to let it set about 4.5 minutes. Now it will take about 4.5 to 5 minutes. The impression material is going to be completely set. The first thing, you're going to remove this wax portion of it. When you remove wax portion, there's always some impression material probably gets in hexa area. Then using small instrument, go ahead and remove it. If you don't remove this one, then it's very difficult to engaging with the drive. So go ahead, remove that little piece of impression material. Then make sure that you want to unscrew that area. Engaged in. You unscrew. When you unscrew it, you're giving a compressive force. You keep unscrew. Still, it's gonna be the pin gonna be come up. But when you're gonna hear that little ticking sound, which meaning is this one is completely unscrew. Then you can make sure that lifting up the pin. See, you can tell that this is already unscrewed. Okay, but do not completely remove it. Sometimes it's difficult to put it in. Just go ahead, unscrew that one again until you hear that ticking sound. So I can hear the sound, then which meaning is it's completely unscrewed. Okay. So try to removing this impression material. It'll be better always lifting up for where the implant is. There's no undercut back there. Yeah, 바셀린 안 발랐더니만. Okay, remove it and you take it out. Okay. Now impression material has been removed. Okay, if you're looking at over here, you can tell that this area is connecting with, you're going to see pickup type of impression coping over the hexa connection, and one area, anterior segment, this is a transfer type, so it's going to be basically come out. So it's supposed to going to be living, it's going to be within the mother area. And this two, we made a different concept. One, we had that connecting with using pickup plastic impression coping. The other was a simulation of direct impression techniques. This is what it looks like when you remove the impression. Okay, now before you are connecting with your lab analog, we're going to go ahead code it with a separating medium, because this area later on we're going to make a gingy model, gum model, so you need to have a good coating of separating medium on this area. When you make a gum model, if you don't have a good separating medium, sometimes the material stick together. It's very difficult to remove. Okay, in order to connecting lab analog, and we have to remove this transfer type of impression coping, and then you selecting lab analog, and make sure that the complete seating, this lab analog shouldn't rotate each other. Okay, then you unscrew it. Then you have 10 Newton connection. Okay. This lab analog has a distinctive feature. This is a triangular shape. So when you do, make sure this angle has to go. You have to look for that the flat area inside. If you're looking at inside, there's a flat area gonna be in the labial portion of it. When you push that area in, you're gonna have a little, you're gonna feel a little snap. Okay, this is a lab analog connection. It's completed with the transfer type of the impression coping. Then this pickup type of impression copings, fairly like you're gonna holding the pickup type. Make sure that find it that hexa. There's no rotation on it. Then you can screw in. When you screw in, make sure don't holding tray. You have to hold it very last minute. You have to hold it to two piece. Okay? Sometimes O-stem impression coping don't have that much problem because there's impression coping as an ear in it. But other company product, if you're holding it, sometimes this impression coping holding can be rotated. So you connected it, and then this portion, this is a direct impression technique, this is an indirect impression technique. Also, this the plastic coping, they have a flat surface area. When you have appropriate lab analog, you're holding it. The lab analog also has a replica of the flat surface. They make sure the flat surface going in. You're gonna hear that little snap sound. snap sound. And that's about, so you have all the left analogs connected, except this area is direct, we're going to pull a model directly.